In this video, I want to test if you can have too much steam while baking bread. Plus, there's going to be a super crisp, blistery surprise at the end of this video. Background info: I was previously testing baking bread at different temperatures. And I showed you that baking at a too hot temperature has negative effects on the actual bread. Your bread won't rise as much in the oven, you will have less oven spring. Because steam transfers the heat very fast to the actual dough. This way your dough forms some sort of gel consistency. This holds the dough's shape, and at the same time it's still somewhat extensible, allowing the dough to rise upwards in the oven. Then I did a few more crazy tests with an apple. I measured different temperatures. I measured not preheating the oven, preheating the oven, only partially preheating the oven, and using a lot of steam. And with steam, the surface temperature of the dough heats up quite a lot. And that makes sense, because there's a lot of energy in that steamy air, and this energy is transferred very fast to the dough. And then I baked a few more breads, and I noticed that sometimes I would have overly large pockets of air near the top of the bread. I was always trying to create as much steam as possible, and I thought, okay, maybe I need to revise my opinion and check whether too much steam actually forms that gel too quickly. So that's the background. Let's put this to the test. It definitely was a super interesting experiment. I would be curious to hear your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen? So this is exactly the same dough. It has been sitting in my fridge for around 20 hours. And now I'm going to be baking one with a large ice cube and one with a small ice cube. So why would you want to use ice cubes in general? They will slowly, as they boil, release a lot of steam to your Dutch oven. I got this idea originally from Jim Challenger and Kristen. Both of them are baking inside of the same Dutch oven that I'm using. Jim invented it. Both of them are using ice cubes inside of their Dutch oven to provide additional steam. Now the big difference was that I would use ice cubes which weigh around 80 grams, which I had for my nice gin tonics, and they would be using ice cubes which were way smaller. So I asked them, both of them are using ice cubes that weigh around 20 grams. So I used 4 times as large ice cubes. Could that be one of the reasons why I was missing out on oven spring and instead had those super big pockets of air? I mean, they're nice if you want to add a lot of butter to your bread. Like a big chunk of butter probably, but nope, not so great in my everyday bread. Or am I seeing this wrong? Could those super large pockets be beneficial for something? Maybe for drying your bread? Anyways, I was intrigued to find out more and test. The temperature at which I'll bake is around 230 degrees Celsius. That seems to be the sweet spot between not too hot and not too cold. So yeah, I like to use a thermometer these days because home ovens can be just random. That really makes sure that you have the perfect temperature. One thing that I don't like too much about the ice cubes is that my dough typically sticks to the Dutch oven. I do use semolina flour, but still that's not enough. The best way for me to bake my bread instead of the Dutch oven using ice cubes is to also add some parchment paper. Now that's a little bit annoying because I have another tool that I need to take care of. But still, I'm gonna do it this way because a dough sticking to the Dutch oven is nothing that I want. And let's hope it's coming out. Ah, yes. Nice. Let's give it a good score in the middle at around a 45-degree angle. And let's load the ice cube. 25 minutes passed, and this is always the moment of happiness or fail. Let's open up the Dutch oven and see what's hiding inside. Oh yeah. Look at this. Beautiful looking bread, but it didn't open up quite as much as I had hoped. Let's put this back into the oven for around another 15 minutes. So bread number 1 has beautiful blisters. It looks so crisp, very delicious. But here, it didn't really open up as much as I hoped it would. And my scoring has actually been quite good, I would say. And second bread, the ice cube is around 20 grams. So bread number one, the one where we had more steam. Let's check the crumb. And oh well, okay, so based on the crumb, I think this one definitely has not really fermented long enough, I would say. So saying that this ear here is because of the ice cube, I don't think that's possible. You see some pockets of air here, but they're not large enough. Fail, my starter was a little too active. Anyways, bread number two, it's looking better, but still, I wouldn't say that we can really do a scientific evaluation. Well, not really scientific, it's more or less in general pseudo-scientific. I have to repeat the same process because this here, this oven spring, a majority of this is coming from you fermenting on point. And I think in general, just looking at the crumb of the last loaf, it wasn't fermented long enough. So yeah, I need to try this again one more time. Hello again. So this time I hope I fermented the dough a little bit better. Let me also check the pH. I hope to make a video on this topic soon, because I feel that the pH is really a very, very, very reliable way to check whether your dough is done with its fermentation or not. So pH at around 4.1, that looks perfect. Now at room temperature, you don't have to use this. You can just use the finger poke test, but this doesn't work unfortunately with cold proof doughs. And you need to cold proof your dough in case you want to bake multiple after another, or else the doughs are going to be ready at the same time. So cold proofing, yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. It has its perks, but also the fact that you can't visually see that nicely whether your dough is done with the proofing. And that's what I don't like about it. And that's what I like to use the pH meter for. The only downside of this is that a pH meter like this is quite expensive. Anyways, enough talking about the pH meter. I hope to make a recipe just using the pH meter soon. Let's bake this one. Oven is preheated and I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen now. First up, the big ice cube, and then the small one afterwards. This is the moment where I completely screwed up. Do you see what's missing? Yes, I forgot to score the bread. Oh no. Okay, wait for it. At this moment, I still didn't know that I screwed up. So I was expecting a super epic bread. Well, see yourself. Halftime, dough number one. Let's see what's hiding behind. What? I'm such a disaster. I forgot to score it. No. Oh well, yes, I completely screwed up. But then I didn't want to make exactly the same dough again because I had so much white bread. I figured, okay, this time I'm going to repeat the experiment one more time, but not with a bread flour style bread, but with a whole wheat dough. I really love eating whole wheat. It has such a hearty taste. It's also a little more challenging, but I got you covered. In case you want to learn how to make an amazing whole wheat bread, please check out the recipe that I'm linking right here. Anyways, let's have a look and see what's going to happen. All right, let's load dough number one. Half time. And one more time. Nice. Beautiful whole wheat bread and also great oven spring here. Let me put this back to the oven to let it finish bake. That's gonna give me a nice good burn. Shoot. And that's what I don't like too much about operating the Dutch oven. I don't really know what happened here. Maybe it was that the glove was a little bit wet. Without any warning, the oven became so hot. And yep, now recording this afterwards, I'm gonna have a nice big scar here on my finger. Do you have good oven gloves that you can recommend? Kind of lost my trust in these. not to go on a full rant here, but I also think that Amazon these days is really broken. Back then when they started, you were able to trust the reviews. But now it seems that all the products have fake reviews. And no matter what you buy, you sort of always get the same product, just with a different label. Super frustrating. Anyways, stopping my rant now, let's continue with the video. And here we go with the results. Big ice cube, small ice cube. Both of them look amazing. This one didn't open up quite as much, but that could easily also have been my scoring. So I don't think we can rely on this. One thing that I find interesting is that I feel that here we do have a few more blisters. And here we don't. I'm thinking that I just want to reproduce this experiment one more time, but with regular bread flour, not with whole wheat flour. Just to go back to my default recipe. Also, you will get a little bit more oven spring as far as I can tell. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna slice both of them open just to check the crumb. And then one more time. Delicious, cute bunny right here. The next one, less steam, smaller ice cube. Look at this very large pocket of air. This could be a sign of too little steam, or me simply screwing up during the shaping process, not shaping the loaf tight enough. One more time, next to each other. Really hard to say. I don't see a major difference. They're almost exactly the same. So one more time, the same experiment. I made a little bit of a smaller dough because I was just having too much bread recently. So each of those has around 300 grams of flour, so it's a little bit smaller. I'll be testing the same strategy again. Large ice cube, small ice cube. The oven has been preheated and it's time to load the first bread. And let's make dough number 2. Around 20 grams of ice. And voila, the two breads next to each other. Do you see those insane amounts of blisters? That was the one that we baked with 20 grams of ice cube. But seriously, I've never had a bread looking that crisp from the outside. And just check this out, how many insane blisters this bread has. This was the one with around 20 grams ice cube. This was the one which we baked with a large ice cube, around 70 grams. Just check this out, this is insane. I've never seen something like this. So many blisters. It's unfortunately already quite late, so let's have another detailed look in the morning and check out who won. Okie dokes. Let's cut the dough with 20 grams of ice cubes first, because I think it's a clear winner. Nice. I'm just a little bit frustrated here because I've been getting so many large pockets of air inside of my dough recently. And that's because I've been using my pH meter to control my fermentation, so my process is a little bit different. I think it's fermented on point. I do need to upgrade my shaping game, giving each of the doughs a tighter shape to make sure this does not happen. But of course you also don't want to shape your dough too tightly, because then you're degassing it quite a lot. 70 grams of ice cubes. Let's check this out. And voila, the crumb. What I always like to look at when it comes to steam is, what about large pockets of air here? This is typically a sign that you do not have enough steam. Like this one here, for instance, but it should be even a little bit closer to the top. And this pretty much matches with the experiment I did before where I baked at a higher temperature and I would never get that nice ear to pop. So likely I would still need to do another 100 experiments or even more to fully confirm this, but I think this shows a nice tendency. I still don't fully know exactly why this is the case, and I would be very curious to hear your thoughts on why you think too much steam might not be good. If you have an idea, please do drop it in the comment section. I would be more than happy to jump in a discussion with you. One thing that I found really amazing about this experiment was the amount of blisters that I had on the crust. Seriously, the blisters add such an amazing additional level of crispness. They really enhance the consistency of the bread. But in this case, I feel that I really fermented the dough on point. At some point, the protease enzyme has broken down the gluten of your flour quite a lot. On top of that, the lactic acid bacteria from your sourdough also digests the gluten. This means that the gas trapped inside will evaporate through the gluten structure, so your dough is going to leak. As far as I can tell, you need to finish the fermentation exactly on point to get such a blistery crust. There needs to be enough gas, but it also shouldn't leak outside. Plus, as shown in the video, you need to have the right amount of steam. Please test this and share me your findings. Furthermore, I would be very curious to hear your thoughts on this. I still didn't find a very good scientific explanation on the interwebs that would describe this phenomenon. So yeah, thanks for watching, and as always, may the gluten be with you.